We can go, right?
And now we're good. Okay. All right.
Okay. So I don't know how this works. Does it like just pop in when I'm talking? Do I go into the big screen?
Yeah.
That's nice. That's a lot better. Are
Yeah.
you recording at 1080?
I don't know.
It's okay. It's all good. All right. Hey, welcome back to Financial Intelligence, everybody. I'm Vito Scarnecchia, and with me is Patrick McAndrew, and we talk about all things finance. We're trying to raise the bar of financial intelligence for everyone, from students to financial engineers. Today, we have with us an amazing man. He's a brother, he's a warrior. I haven't talked to him in I don't know how many years, but it's just a grand experience to be able to see his face again. Mark Clifford, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thank you for that wonderful intro. I mean, everybody should have the preface of amazing man before him. Please reserve that for your future guests.
Yeah. Man, I've never gotten that, so that's pretty good, Vito.
Well, it's because you're Army.
ah.
So, Mark, just a quick thing. Patrick he's active reserve right now, Army. He does some kind of intel thing. He's like a spook. Can't really tell you what he does. But
Oh my God.
we bust each other's chops all the time, right? And it's brotherly love. So
okay, and I'll probably join in too here and
good.
there.
I need your backup, bud.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Uh, Mark, you and I go back. What I want to say like 30 something years, right?
Amen.
Uh,
Wow.
I was a private and you were a staff sergeant, and I guess I kind of grew up, or you were probably a sergeant, and then I just remember you as Staff Sergeant Clifford, this big, grand, you know, like a superstar, right?
More.
Please stop. Please.
No, stop, please. And you were a platoon sergeant. I want to say first platoon, second platoon,
First platoon.
second, first.
First.
And it was you and Savelli going off each other, having fun, and I was just a little fart of a mortar man, and you guys are just bigger than life, having a grand old time. I just remember those days.
Dang it, I love this intro.
Yeah.
Let's make this more about me, this whole show.
This whole show
I'm gonna
is
talk
all
less.
about you. Yeah. And as things do, time moves on, and you got out, and we were in the reserves then, and then you and I went to Okinawa together.
Yes.
We served at Desert Storm in Okinawa, becoming alcoholics and volleyball extraordinaires.
Yes.
Survived that. Went to Mount Fuji. I'm sure I saw you at the baseball game or at Roppongi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then our time flew by, and you got out, and I was still in, and we were driving on a bus. Going, I want to say, from what I remember, we were going to Angel Island to go see, not Angel, Treasure Island to do a retirement ceremony, and there's Mark Clifford, civilian, running in Tevas. And I want to say you were a cop by then. And then
Probably.
I just remember everybody just remarking about how this guy was so tough. He would run up the hills of San Francisco. So that's all I remember about you.
That's great. Patrick, what do you think of this great memory of me?
I mean, no wonder why you called you such an amazing man. I mean,
but it's true, right? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I just remember like in high school, you had those all-American guys. I just remember Mark being that all-American guy. So there you go.
Oh, man. Don't make me cry in the middle of this thing. This is great.
And then years later, you become a cop, right?
I do. Yeah.
And then you retired as a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your service. I support the blue. Wow. All that bullshit that these little whatever guys are doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you retire and you write a book.
I do.
You want to talk about it?
I do. So many things to talk about. Once again, thank you very much for that great introduction. Is that right after I left the Marine Corps, I got in police work and did 27 years of police work. I retired as a sergeant, a patrol sergeant, and had a very colorful career. I did every assignment there was. And My last day, 2,000 people came to my town, and they looted the whole thing. That was June 1, 2020. So, kind of to use a couple of military metaphors. I mean, my last day was like that last scene of Platoon, where
That, that
Martin
was
Sheen.
that was literally your last day on the job.
It was my last day on the job. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a planned retirement. They kept me on as an annuitant for 3 more months, and a lot of high profile stuff happened that I still kind of have hanging over my head. But yeah, that last day was literally like that last scene of Platoon, that scene where Martin Sheen is in the helicopter rising above the battlefield. I mean, the town that I gave so much to was devastated, um, burning. It was just really sad. And then from there you go, what's the next chapter in my life? What's the next chapter in my life? I was walking the streets. I mean, I felt like, to another metaphor, was like Sylvester Stallone on the first scene of First Blood. When he's walking down that street, and he's not a wanted person. Police officers were not the superstars that I was when I went in 1993 and 94. They needed heroes, and we had, like I said, had a great career. I had a noble career. I saw everything that law enforcement should have, and so you can imagine. We'll get into my Pinatubo story too. In the Marines in the Philippines, is that back to back, you got a military career and a law enforcement career, and with that, you have a lot of post-traumatic stress that comes with it. And that's one thing that I learned a lot about as a police officer after critical incidents. I'd have to go talk to psychologists. So I learned a lot about the healing process and that. And then after police work, I got heavily involved with Zach Brown, the country music guy, his not-for-profit in Georgia, Camp Southern Ground, through Warrior Week, helping veterans in transition into civilian life, and a PATH program called about post-traumatic growth. And so when people say, hey, so what inspired you to write about your Mount Pinatubo experiences, is really a contraction of my law enforcement career and my military adventures over in the Philippines. That in retrospect, it's my post-traumatic growth. It's me, and people who know me, they recognize all the stuff in the book and say, hey, Mark, that's you. That's not your main character, Trent McShane. It's and I go, yeah, 90% of it's me, because it's kind of unique. Is it sometimes you have stories that you can't tell the reality of it. You have to fictionalize it, and that's what I chose to do with my story. So it have a better appeal to not just the dark and stormy night veteran writers and cop writers, but an appeal to a wider audience, so they understand what police work is like, and they understand what it's like being forward deployed and how lonely it is in the military. So I wanted to be a timeless book. I wanted it to be a book that speaks to people. And I kind of a funny note, when I'm in the process, and there's a whole story of how the book came about, and in the process of writing, going through different drafts of the book, one night I came home from a shift, and I hear my wife reading to my youngest kid, and I think it's like a Harry Potter book, and I'm sitting on the stairs and listening to the story, and I go, holy Toledo, my wife is reading an earlier draft of Typhoon Coast. And I go, I really got something there. It was a lot of inspiration, a lot of education went into it, a lot of going back to college and learning how to write in the writing process, and the marketing process, the financial side of writing.
Yeah, I bet that must have been quite a journey to go through all that. I couldn't even imagine where to start, really. So not even sure what to ask first. However, I will say, how many years in the Marine Corps did you do?
10.
So 10 years Marine Corps, and then followed by over 20 in the police force. So talk about
27, close to 30,
almost 30, close to 30 to
40
20
years serving.
Yeah,
40 years of serving. And sometimes along that journey, you don't become the best versions of yourself, and you want to become a better, who you were when you started out. Be a better dad, be a better husband. And one of the therapists that I spoke to, they go, Mark, the human body and mind is not engineered to do what you put yourself through. And somewhere along the line, the healing has to begin, and that's one of the things of I have a platform and things to advocate for. And that's the healing process for our veterans and our first responders. It's very important to me. It's something that I know a lot about. Two things well, three things. I know a lot about the Marine Corps. I know a lot about law enforcement. I know a lot about writing, and I know a lot about healthy ways to recover from post-traumatic stress.
Right. And PTSD is, it's so ubiquitous. You have to find your path. You have to be, it took me, I just said it today in my live. It took me about 15 years to give up the ghost of being in the Marines. Because to this day, I still want to go back, and I regret not going to combat, because you get brainwashed into that and all the crap, you know, dealing with staff sergeants and sergeants when you're a young kid, and dealing with the higher ups when you're more mature. I was a staff sergeant. I had a platoon, and we had an I first sergeant that was just a useless piece of crap. He made everybody's life miserable. And one of the reasons why I left the Marine Corps, I would have stayed in for 20 years or more if they let me. One of the reasons why I left is because that guy made being there so miserable, right? Oh yeah, he hurt my feelings. Yeah, absolutely, right? But at the same time, I got angry from it, and I didn't know how to deal with that anger, and that was my form of PTSD, right?
Yeah.
I can handle getting bombs blown up, and I can handle shooting stuff and having cannons ripped off and blown shot out right underneath by my ear. And at the end of the day, you have to realize that you will be affected, right? I know, Patrick, you do all that crazy intel spook stuff, right?
For anybody who's listening and knows me and disregard any of this intel spook stuff. and Mark, I was just gonna say, man, thank you. 2 times a citizen, because you're 2 times a service. That's awesome. And
well, it was my honor. And I tell you, when we go back and we talked about, like Vito talking about his post-traumatic stuff, is that one of the things that I advocate for is that veterans and cops, we don't corner the market on trauma. And so I had a podcast series last year called Heroes for Hope, Thriving Beyond Trauma, where I introduced people who went through some really horrific stuff, and the whole process of turning your trauma into your superpower. It's kind of the theme for Typhoon Coast 2 and my experience over in Pinatubo, is that we owe it to citizens to build a bridge, and I did it through the arts, to really advocate for all the stuff that we learned. Because in the end, and I work with a lot with veterans from different generations, is that we really don't get hung up on our enemy. We get hung up on the people who are in charge of us, the poor decisions that were made. My son is just got out of the Marine Corps over the summer, and he's going through transition, and he's going through the whole veteran experience. And there are so many great programs out there for our veterans to take advantage of now. But I know for me, Vito, when I left Echo back in 93-ish, is that I got out of the Marines like my hair is on fire. I just wanted to start my life, get married, finish college, start my police career. And it's different. Veterans have different needs now. The younger generation of law enforcement, the generation that's replacing me, different needs now. In fact, reaching out to like the VA for disability claims and law enforcement for disability claims, is that, they say the only problem with you, Mark, is that you came from the suck it up generation, and they never told us about all of the things that we were entitled to in law enforcement or in the military side of the house. Is that, why suffer in silence? Build a sense of community. That's one of the things. I tell you the story of leaving, like Sylvester Stallone in First Blood, is that, I had playmates for 10 years. I had the Savellis. I had all those guys that were my buddies for all those years. And then I left that and I went into law enforcement, and I worked investigations, undercover. I was on SWAT for 15 years. I had buddies. And then when you're out of there, you you got to find new playmates. And so my new playmates are my veteran community now, and also the writing community. I'm involved in a lot of writing stuff. I'm associated with the San Francisco Writers Conference and the volunteer side of that. I was on the board of California Writers Club last year. I do a lot of stuff to promote my book and my writing. So I found a new sense of community, because one of the problems that we find in a lot of our people who deal with critical incidents, they have a tendency to isolate, and I go, I'm not going to stay home for the next half of my career. I'm going to get out there and be a part of community.
Bravo. It's strong. I tell you, my healing came from giving back to my community, right? So once a semester, we all go to San Jose State and do a talk to veteran students and talk about what I do is real estate. So I talk to them about the VA loan, and then Patrick comes and talks to them about his financial investing and putting away for the future. And we created this group, and now we have an insurance guy, we have a loan guy, we have a home finance counselor to coach, I guess, and she talks to the veterans, and it's just our way of giving back. And that has really helped me feel so much better, because of the time that I've lost being angry. I can't get it back. So what can I do? I can just start giving back. And now I spend a lot of time volunteering, doing stuff. I'm involved with another veteran organization called Know of That.
That's a
self-help portal.
I was going to say, Vito, don't sell yourself short. There's a lot of ways you give back. It's not just, I'd say what you just mentioned on the veterans group that we put together. That's probably the least of all the things you're doing.
Yeah, but it's my way of healing, though, right? I mean, I feel I talk about this to all the veterans out there that are in my position. I never got to fight in combat. That's such a huge guilt thing for me, because that's what I grew up doing. I grew up being groomed and brainwashed to go to war. We went to war. We just never got called. We never got put in our chess piece never got put over in the sand. And I feel guilty about it.
Well, because we went over there thinking that was going to last for 4 or 5 years. We were the largest Marine infantry battalion on active duty at the time. You read all the debriefs on it. We did a hell of a job. We picked up a lot of real world missions, but that ground war ended in 100 hours. And one of the lessons to be taken away from Desert Storm is that we did total war over there. And our next war lasted for 20 plus years. Is that we finished that quickly. And so a lot of people wrestle with that. And I know a lot of veterans that wrestle with the same issues that you're wrestling with, Vito, is that, this last incident at Afghanistan, where we lost 13 of our beautiful Marines, and is that there are people out there that, you can't unsee what you see. And that's the thing about like law enforcement and my experience over in the Philippines, the Pinatubo, is that, we're all people here to do what God wants us to do. And so maybe if you did see combat or some horrors of wars, that's the thing, is that we're trained to see that stuff, and we shoulder those burdens, but what really gets to us are the command issues that we deal with. And
Right.
We just got to be people of faith and know that we were where God wanted us to be at the time when we wanted. And I mean, just kind of a little backstory about how we ended up in Pinatubo is that we were there doing the combat security patrols against the NPA. The first time we took the USS Dubuque over there, and that's all in my book, and then we had the opportunity to turn our unit into SOC, Special Operations Capable. So 3MF needed a staff NCOIC in charge of 19 guys to run them through the Special Operations Training Group for the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force. So I was I was that staff NCOIC, and I remember going up to First Sergeant Murphy. I just finished the staff NCO Academy, but I couldn't graduate because I was down playing football with you guys, and one of the Marines jumped up and hit me and tore my chest muscle away from my rib cage. And so I go, man, I was expected to be the golden child of that academy class, and I couldn't graduate. And so I begged Murph. I go, Murph, you got to send me to this. I got to be in charge of this. I just need this. And and he sat there, you know, from Kentucky, and he's all, man, Staff Sergeant Clifford, I don't know. And he let me go. He chose me, and didn't choose Savelli. He didn't choose Savelli.
Screw Savelli. Pork chops and applesauce.
Yeah. No, but in that kind of, in that low point of that deployment for me, you know, ended up getting me over to the Philippines for that Pinatubo adventure, which was just a mind-boggling experience that I based Typhoon Coast on.
Yeah, and you know, I was so jealous that I didn't get picked to go. Rodriguez in my section got to go in my squad, and because I always wanted to go to the Philippines. And if you, I know you don't remember this, but like the second day we were there, I got my knee jacked up playing soccer, and I had to limp around in a little Velcro cast, and they wouldn't let me do anything. And I was like, I was such a little bastard. I just would stop doing. I would go and do training and limp around, and I'd get yelled at and get put back on light duty, and I would just keep on because I didn't want to miss out on the war.
Yeah.
I was going to go to war, and I kept on getting yelled at, and like finally the doctor, the orthopedic surgeon came in and said, we're going to operate on you, or you're going to do this. And I'm like, you're not going to fucking touch me. Well, you have to be on light duty, and you have to wear this, or I'm going to put you, I'm going to put a full on cast on you. I'm like, and then I never got to go to Philippines. So you guys floated over to the PI on the Dubuque, and I sat there in Hanson while you guys got to go play.
Well, I tell you, you know, we showed up for that war. You know, we showed up. We did a great job showing up for that war, but the war never happened. You know, it ended so quickly. You know, there was a role for us. I went to the 1st Marine Division debrief. We had a real role to play in that war if it came to fruition. But, you know, I think America couldn't stomach that highway of death, and they said enough's enough. And that's when we drew the line, you know, when we probably should have kept on going and just you know, brought that Iraqi army to its ashes.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm 55 years old now, and many years ago during my healing, I realized I was blessed to not have to see that. Because I don't know if I could handle it or not, but I was blessed. But still, the ghost is there to this day.
You know what?
But
Vito, you know, I mean, to segue into my book, I guess, you know what, we all have to agree is that life is a ghost story, right?
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
In the people that I write about, the fictionalized version of the people I write about in Typhoon Coast are my ghosts, you know, and they're my therapy. And art was a great way to deal with these people in my life that haunted me, that were here for me at special times. I mean, I am the product of the people that were around me, you know, and their fortunate opportunities that they presented to me. And that's kind of why I put a lot of them on my book. You know, a lot of people, they recognize who they are, you know. And so to kind of go back to the Pinatubo story, and your buddy Rodriguez that was with me over there, is you know, on June 12th, we were out on this island. We were assault climbers, so we were doing a lot of climbing out on this island across from Subic Bay. And I get this call, and on the radio, and we were out there having training hard, having a great time. It was just us. And is this a PG-13 or what?
No, you can do whatever you want.
And so if anybody's going to take notes on this, write this down, right? Write down The Fuck It Bucket by Mark R. Clifford. Okay. I actually wrote a short story that may entice you to read the book, and it was published by a military arts magazine. It's like 2,000 words, quick read, but it's a quick down and dirty of what life was like in the very coveted destination of Subic Bay in 1991. We had service members out there since the end of World War II, before World War II, in and out for years. Everybody wanted to go there, and we really we were able to partake in the culture and all the fun and all the stuff that generations of people. In fact, my dad was stationed there in the Navy before, in the 50s, and he actually started the naval radio station there. And his claim to fame is that he was 3 barracks down from where who's the guy that the name skips me. I'll get back to it. The assassinator of JFK, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee
Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, he was stationed at the same time as Lee Harvey Oswald. So we're there on this island training. And I get this call. Hey, you gotta go to the evacuation point and go back to your barracks at Subic. So a Mike boat was going to meet us there. So I told my buddy, I have a lot of good friends that were with me at the time. They're still friends with. And I go, hey, we got to go back to Subic, to the barracks. And he's all, why? I go, well, they say there's a volcano erupting. So I look up to the sky and I see this big white cloud with the backdrop of this real pristine blue tropical blue sky. And I go, saddle up, guys, let's go down to the Mike boats. We're gonna go back to Subic. And so we saddle up. I remember saying goodbye to one of the villagers, the chief of the village, and he's all, what should we do? I go, well, just kind of stay indoors, because the ash was already starting to drop. And so we get on the Mike boat, we go for a little 40-minute ride across Subic, and by that time the Mike boat was almost sunk by the weight of the ash, the falling
Holy
ash.
cow.
So we get to our barracks, and I go, well, I mean, I'm a California guy. I just rode out the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, which the anniversary was just a couple of days ago. And I go, let's just get all our MREs and fill up all our 5-gallon water jugs and just weigh this thing out. So we did that. And then 3 days later, on June 15th, the major eruption happened. So as just kind of a plug to military planning and science, is that they predicted, yes, this volcano would erupt. They anticipated that it was going to erupt and just take out Clark Air Force Base, all the heavy stuff, and the Lahars. So they excised this operation called Operation Fiery Vigil. So you had around, I think, 10 major naval ships come into Subic, and they evacuated, I think it was 25,000 people. So we're credited for saving probably over 250,000 people, because we still didn't know how big this thing was going to be. So we evacuated all the people from the lower lands around the mountain, and so then it was time to ride it out. And this thing, when it went off, it went off. It was dark for a couple days, earthquake the entire time. We had a typhoon that came through, Typhoon Yunya, and it was apocalyptic. It was Sodom and Gomorrah. It was a biblical explosion. It ended up being the second largest volcanic eruption of the 20th century, the first largest in a populated area. Unbelievable devastation. So I'm down there with my 19 guys that I'm in charge of, and we're literally being buried alive. The ash is piling up around our Quonset hut. The typhoon came through and turned that stuff into cement, and that's where most of the loss of life came from, is just the weight of the ash. So what happened was that they anticipated, yes, that Clark would be taken out. Clark was taken out by a lot of the heavy stuff, but they did not anticipate that all that ash was going to come over Subic, and that's where most of the death happened, in the Subic area. And so, it was dark for 24 hours, almost 2 days in that Quonset hut. And there's only so much you can do before the panic really sets in. And then you resolve that, what, we're going to die here. And I was figuring, I'm going to die here. I think the reason why I had a little more bravery is because I was in charge of these guys. And if I wasn't, I probably would have been a little more panicky. And I was 20, 25, 26 years old. I was a kid. And so I remember going to sleep saying, "Oh, I'm probably going to be found like a soldier in Pompeii here," and I'll never know family, life, and all my other ambitions. And Ledigan was sleeping below me. Remember Mike Ledigan?
Yeah.
He's a good buddy of mine today.
Tell him hi.
Okay, I will. And so he shakes the rack and he goes, "I think it's over." And so we went over to the hatch door of the Quonset hut, and started digging our way out, through this hot ash. And so we dug up. I had no idea. We could have been 100 feet under this ash for all I knew. And we dug our way out, and we pop our heads out, and it was like what used to be triple canopy jungle was now like the desolation wilderness in Tahoe area. It was just complete devastation, and you knew it was going to be devastation because for 24 hours that jungle was defoliating. It sounded like automatic machine gun fire. It was so loud. It was just really something. It was just a crazy time. And then that's when we jumped into the humanitarian role. We had a lot of missions as assault climbers, and there was some tragedy associated with that, and that's a whole other story about the one thing I found out, Vito, in this whole experience is that one of the missions was to go out and clear the ash off of the roof of this 80-foot high hangar. They needed guys that were specialists in climbing. So the MAGTF commander says, "Hey, go out and survey it with an engineer." And so we go down to the flight area, and this big old corrugated aluminum thing built for the tropics hangar was shifting around, and it had helicopters inside. We needed to get the helicopters out because the NPA was starting to get really aggressive coming on the base, and so we really needed to secure the base better, and we need to get our air asset back. So I go out there to look at this, and I go, wow, this thing is just creaking. I mean, it's full of ash on top, and it was creating a lot of pressure to keep the doors closed. And the engineer says, "Man, you get up there, that thing's gonna collapse 80 feet." And so I go back to the commander and I say, "Hey, he said it's going to collapse," and the commander says, "Get out there." And so it's that whole concept of, in the Marine Corps, mission accomplishment comes before troop welfare, and we know that, and it's different for other branches of service, but the mission is everything. So here I am, I got my mission, I go out there, I get my guys up there, and sure as shit, a section of it collapses. 2 guys fall 80 feet. Unforgiving. 80 feet on cement is unforgiving to the human body, to say the least. So what happened was, though, is that we were able to get those helicopters out and get our air asset back, and so that's the Marine Corps mentality, is that you sacrifice for the greater good. And those are things that I wrestle with, Vito, and a lot of other things in my life that I struggle with, and it's a long struggle, and I've chose my way to deal with it. But that was kind of the beginning of my struggle in the reality of life, is that life requires, life's nuts. It's crazy. You'll never know what happens next. And that's the thing, to go back to writing, is that, is that you can live your life over and over again. And if you know what happens next every time, it loses its luster, but, and that's the great thing about, being a writer, is that you have to set up an environment of what happens next, and anybody can go and read the volumes and volumes of Mount Pinatubo and Operation Fiery Vigil, but nobody writes about it. I'm the only person that writes about it. It's like my gem, everybody else writes about all sorts of stuff that I'm so familiar with. I'm so familiar with, a lot of Marine Corps stuff. I'm so familiar with police stuff, shootings, homicides, triple homicide. I mean, you name it. Okay. I mean, that was my bread and butter for so many years. But this Pinatubo story was my gem, and when I came home, and I knew I had this story in me a few years later, but I kicked myself about the how quickly the Gulf War ended. I remember walking through the squad bay, and one of my Marines, they're all staring at the TV, and I came in with the orders for the day, all, pressed up, Staff Sergeant Clifford it out, and they go, "Hey, guess what, Staff Sergeant?" I go, "What?" And they go, "The war is over." And I'm all like, "Are you effing serious?" Um, and so, that's just kind of the way it was for me, to kind of go back to effing, and the story of the fuck it bucket is that, when I was a cop, a lot of shit was going down, especially when I got promoted. I got promoted, during the defunding the police, during the Black Lives Matter and all that stuff. And a lot of cops, a lot of my fellow supervisors just got so annoyed with absolutely everything. And one of my fellow supervisors getting all messed up about some stuff. And I go, "Hey man, you got to have a fuck it bucket." And I go, "What's that?" He says, "What's that?" And I go, "Well, I got one under my desk." So I take this invisible bucket. And I go, "You just got to start throwing shit in there, and you just got to say, fuck it, and throw stuff in there. And everybody needs to have a fuck it bucket about some of their problems, because not everything matters too much. The things that really matter in life are, I guarantee you, the things that you made out of your life with, family and relationships.
Yep.
And you know what? Because combat and all the crap that I had to see in law enforcement, those are ghosts that'll be with me all the time. That I'll deal with all the time.
Yeah, and
Gives me shit to write about.
it gives you shit, and there's plenty of time for you to write about it, and that's your healing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that you found that as your gift to heal and share with others, because there's other people that are in pain, right? I mean, I work with noavet.org. It's a online service that helps veterans find help, whatever issue it is. It could be sexual trauma, PTSD, whatever, financial, and it's a portal that helps veterans get help. And I think that's it. Is you said it right. Our mission comes before us, and our mindset is suck it up, Buttercup. And there's still veterans that are from Vietnam that are in pain and suffering, and you had the wherewithal to start your healing. It took me 15 years to figure out how to start my healing, and it takes something of a massive switch to say, "Hey, now is the time for me to heal." And it could be your wife, it could be your husband, if you're, whatever. It could be your daughter. And once that switch comes out and says, "I need to heal," then that's when you're going to start healing. And these portals are designed for other people to figure out how to talk to that veteran that's hurting. And I'm so glad that we got to catch up after 30 years and help each other, like, spread the word, right? Because I know that there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of veterans out there that are suffering. And if we can help one or two, then we've done our job.
Hey brother, you are doing the Lord's work out here. Both you guys are, and it's awesome that you're doing it. If there is something that I would love to share with you about the organizations that I'm involved with, and I can send you the links on these things. I write about it on my website, markrclifford.com. Feel free to go and check out my blog. And one is the Warrior Week through Zach Brown's Warrior Week. It's very unique, and it gives veterans resources to transition into civilian life. A lot of our veterans really struggle with that. And then there's a Warrior Path program that is also available at Camp Southern Ground. But it's a national program. They have a lot of different places that you can go to it. I write about that too. These are life-changing experiences, because a lot of people, they get stuck in their trauma, and that's one thing that I don't know. I always grew from my trauma. I carried it with me, but there was a growth process, and that's what Path is about. It's about that your trauma doesn't define you. It's part of your growth. It's about your ability, and this is kind of my mantra, is that your ability to turn your trauma into superpower. It's not there to bring you down, but it's there to enhance you and change your perception of yourself and the world around you. And that's and the path that I chose for this was writing, and I'll write my entire life. You know, I'm a creative person, you know, and you know, in life, as far as creative and ideas is, and maybe this might resonate with some of the veteran community, is you got billions and billions of ideas that bombard your freaking head every day. Okay, ideas are looking for a human host, and most of us say, not good enough to do that, not qualified to do that. But a few of us, I'm looking at you two, you go, you know what, I'm gonna do something with that. I did something with that. I did something with my idea. You know, I put feet on it. And you guys, by doing this, very nature, you're doing this and all the stuff that you do, you're putting feet on helping other people out. You know, for me, it's the hopes that somebody flips open one of my books or reads one of my blog posts or what have you, and they get back to me and they go, man, you know what? You really opened my view of myself and the world around me. You know, and that's my goal. We all give back in a different way, but we're giving back. We're giving back.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. And Patrick, you can chime in anytime you want to, but you know, I sell real estate. I've been selling real estate for 20 years now, almost 20 years. And I struggled trying to figure out how to make things work. And, uh, you know, by me giving back, I get so much more in return. And I'm really happy that you're doing this and you're reaching out to fellow veterans and people that are hurting and doing that. And like I said, if we could help one or two people learn how to become authors, right? I mean, I guess we should really talk about the business end of it because
Okay.
this is financial
I like it. I
intelligence,
like it.
right?
Well,
I mean,
I just don't want to. I don't want to lose my thought real quick though, Vito. I just wanted to. I was really struck by what you said on a lot of things you said, Mark. However, I thought you said it beautifully when you said, you know, ideas are looking for hosts, right? It
Yeah.
reminds me of the other saying of like
fuck it, bucket.
opportunities aren't missed; they're just passed on to other people, right? So
Yeah.
you may not take that idea, but somebody else will. And
Yeah.
ideas are looking for hosts, and that's a fantastic way to put it. And this whole experience you have with Mount Pinatubo.
Trying to make it a household name. There you go.
No, I mean, that's a fascinating chapter in history, military history, even, that I think you're spot on. That's I think you cornered the market on that.
Yeah.
What an interesting and different and crazy experience to learn about and read about. So just so glad you made a story about it that we can all dive into. And I couldn't imagine how much more trauma was layered up on top of that after 27 years being a public servant as a police officer too. So just one heck of a journey you're still on. And these resources you just offered, I'm pretty, just like Vito, I do a lot of things myself, and find myself always coming across new opportunities to share, for resources to support our veteran community. But I've never heard of this Zach Brown's camp or Southern Ground and these courses. So excited to share those too. So thank you for bringing those to light. And
so Patrick, also, if I may, is that these are free, no expense. They'll get you out to Georgia, you fly into Atlanta, and it's so interesting how, there are people that, you know what, they can't get themselves out to do it free. You're eating at the same level, food prepared by the same cook that's cooking for Zach Brown. I mean, and people still don't take advantage of these programs, and there's so many of them out there.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to share that as far as I can, and excited to learn more about it, actually. And so thank you for that. And I love that post-traumatic growth, baby. That's right. I love that. And let's segue here. We don't have a whole lot of time left. I want to get into. I guess we got to have you come back again a couple times, maybe.
I would love to have you on, dude. It's like recapturing my youth. So, when you decided to write this book, did you have a plan on how to get it out to the market? Did you talk to a publisher, or how did it start?
So I've always been a writer. When I got out of the Marine Corps and had a family, I had a journalism degree. I went to San Jose State, and Spartans, and didn't graduate from San Jose State. I had to take a hiatus, and I finished up at Cal State Hayward. Now something out East Bay, something. And but I've always enjoyed writing, and so I had a lot of first persons out, and San Jose Mercury and all the newspapers. I'd put them out about, being a dad and stuff. And so when people would read those, they go, "Hey, Mark, I read your thing in the Mercury or whatever." It felt good. It really felt good. So it kind of got me stuck on it. And then I entered um, the short story writing, took a lot of classes on it. So I learned the craft behind it, had a writing coach, and had a lot of short stories put together. And so one day, sad story behind it, a friend of mine, Dan Nemi in '05, he was my beat partner, was killed in line of duty. And he was also a writer. And a group of his friends got together, and he was brutally murdered in the line of duty. It was very sad. It really impacted my entire agency and a lot of lives. And so group of friends, his friends got together and they say, "Hey, let's start a writing competition in his memory." And so I wanted to be a writing friend of his beat partner, and enter. And so I wrote a piece and sent it in to an editor to have him review it before I sent it in. You got to work really with an editor. And he got back to me, "Hey, change this, change that, good piece. By the way, when's the deadline for this writing competition?" I looked down, I missed it by 2 days. And I go, "Hey,
Oh.
Joe, my editor at the time, I go, I'm going to write a book. I'll talk to you in 10 years. And so 10 years later, I had this book, and I put it on Amazon, and it's great. A lot of people write books. I worked with the independent publisher, like I said, a lot of writing coaches, a lot of revisions, went really professional path on this. I learned a lot about the academics of writing. And I took a very unique, risky approach to writing it too. And when it came out the other end, now you got to market it. Okay. So you put it out there. And so that's really where a lot of people, they just come out with their book. And here's a little Typhoon Coast. Can you see it? No. I'm holding it up here, and I guess you can't see it.
There it is.
Typhoon Coast. Okay. And then it comes to the marketing. Okay. So I have a blog. I got a killer website that my publisher, my indie publisher, put together for me. And I surrounded myself with a lot of people who were at my level and wanted to get better in their craft too. So I got an artist to do a lot of my merchandising. So I got mugs. I got stickers to give to the kiddies at book signings. I had a podcast, so I did a mug for that one too. One thing I talked to about when I meet writers, I meet a lot of new writers in my California Writers Club, and they tell me about their book, and I go, "Well, I'd like to hear more. Give me your card." And they go, "I don't have a card." And I remember when I was a new writer and I was at a restaurant, and a fellow writer is telling somebody about my book, and he goes, "Hey, Mark, give their card." And I go, "I don't have a card." Well, I tell you what, the next day I had a card.
There you go.
I got a nice QR code on there. I got my Pinatubo logo, which has it tells a lot about the book. It's got my logo on there that says "Life's a treasure hunt, seek and you will find." Those are words that I really believe in. I really believe that life is a treasure hunt. God ain't going to tell you where your treasures are. They're not going to be in a hole someplace. They're not going to be on the shelf someplace. But you know what? They're in people around you. And so when you are finding treasures, you're finding the treasures and the opportunities of other people. And people like you are creating. You're creating that. You're finding the treasures in other people. So you got to get out there. You got to do a lot of marketing. You got to partner. In fact, one of the things I did early is that I buried a gold ticket in San Francisco for $1,000, and it's still there as far as I know. But if you read a poem in the book and you have a bit of a savvy for San Francisco history, you'll be able to find it. That's $1,000 ticket, and it's right there buried in a public place. I got information on it on my website, and I'm always starting coming up with unique marketing concepts. And so for like my second book, I have a YouTube channel, and I think it actually, these little pictures behind me, it's all based upon the Snake Man. in my book. And growing up, I thought I was related to the great Bat Masterson of the Old West. He's a
You can
famous
still
guy.
say you are. Nobody will know.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I'm gonna say I still am spiritually, maybe. And he was also a law enforcement guy, famous guy, became a writer, you know, died at his typewriter. But I based a lot of my character's backstory on that relationship that he had, knowing that he was related to Bat Masterson. And so I really enjoyed that. If you Google Snake Man 248, you'll come up with my very new YouTube channel, and I have 10 episodes of animations of kind of the backstory of my book to promote Typhoon Coast. And I also have my second book, Earthquake Coast, that's going to be coming out. It's the second in the trilogy in April.
Oh, nice.
So
Right on.
is that for the 89 earthquake?
The 89-year earthquake is featured actually in that animation you're probably looking at right now. Did you find Snake Man 248? I've written a couple of posts on that. I actually taught a class on bringing cop characters to fiction, and so I really flesh them out, and it's just really cool. 248, people go, where's 248 come from? 248 was my badge number in police work. So but yeah, this whole concept of the Snake Man is just wonderful. It appeals to kids. It has a superhero quality to it, and the inception was, and you can read about on my blog of how this kid came to understand it. Is it Trent McShane in my book? He's an only child. I was one of actually 6 boys and a girl, so I came from a huge freaking family, a big Irish Catholic family where you get lost half the time. And so I wanted to make my book fantasy for me to be what it was like to be an only child. And so that's the perspective, and everything has point of view. Think about it. You know, somebody's going to write about Ukraine one day. Somebody's going to write about Gaza Strip one day, you know, or the Gaza one day. And so it's perspective, and the perspective that I chose to write about my law enforcement career at a very tumultuous time and my time in the Marine Corps. That's how I chose to tell my story. You know, and a lot of other successful authors do that too. And as like I said, it's a part of healing for myself. Part of healing for myself.
Yeah. Do you think you could ever put that into would you do a movie with this?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. You asked, you know, is that during the writer's strike, I got a LinkedIn account, and the people who really responded to my LinkedIn were screenplay writers. And so I got a bunch of guys and gals that called me. They actually read the book. They had full understanding of the book. The people who don't understand the book are the people who do not read the foreword. The foreword is a very important part of my artistic creation. Is that it's the map of the book. You got to read it. You'll know the book. And so these people were good readers. They read it. And you can read a lot of my reviews on Amazon. People get it, you know, and so it's a lot of fun to understand that. And so yeah, they made offers. There was a financial buy-in for it that I'm not really prepared for now. I'm probably going to go solicit more for it after the second book. I mean, the best thing you can do for your first book is write a second book. Never be a standalone author. You know, never do a one and done, because that's what they're always going to ask you. You know, and to kind of go back to say how do you publish? You know, like everybody, they have this big dream is that, oh, I'm going to write a book, it's going to become a bestseller and be made into a major motion picture. Well, I write the major motion picture with an appeal. This book, and if you read if you listen and look at my trailer for it, it's got major motion picture written all over it. And so people they would look at my trailer and it's pretty natural. It's a natural progression. Yeah, and so I'll go down and I'll pitch it. I made a lot of friends, a lot of connections, a lot of screenplay writing connections, and I'll give that give it a try next year. What I really want to do is next year when I turn 60, if you can believe that, I want to go walk up Mount Pinatubo. I want to go back to the Philippines and Waka Pinatubo. And now, oddly enough, it is
I know somebody who's always wanted to go to the Philippines too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vito, we'll go. I'll take you. I don't know if
that'd be awesome.
I don't know if the USS Dubuque's still sailing, but I'll get your Philippine.
It might be sunk down in the water somewhere. Yeah, I'm not available April and May, but after that, I think I could probably. I have some business associates out there that I have to meet, and yeah,
we'll
I might be interested in going.
Vito, when you have an Italian name like you have, and your first name is Vito, when you say you got business associates to see up there, it makes it sound very suspect. Is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
That's the Filipino mafia, right? That's what we're saying.
There is such thing, especially in the Navy.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, Mark, we got to get moving here. I'd love to have you on again and listen to your adventures and talk to you about what's going on. Maybe like the next time we talk to you, we can talk about the journey of how you're getting your book out there and how you're marketing it, and how maybe the trail of how we're getting it over to Hollywood for you, or something like that, right? Because I'd love to learn more about that.
Oh yeah, I could talk about it for hours, man. And I'm glad I had this opportunity. And once again, if you want to learn more about me and where I am in writing and what I'm doing next, you can go to my website, markrclifford.com. And that's Mark with a K, R. What I hated growing up having my two names clash together. That's why I was like ranked Mark Clifford, those two hard continents. So remember that R in the middle, and you'll see all the stuff come up on me on Google and the stuff that I've been doing and love to do.
Right on. Well, now we'll be sure to get all that information out on how to contact you. I think this might be a great show to put out for with Veterans Day coming up here soon. So this would be great.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
You know what, guys? Is that I love to see our fellow veterans thrive. Whatever we can do, and we're thriving. And for every one of us, there are a lot of guys that are struggling and gals that are struggling. And so whatever we can do, because we're gems to the United States. We are ready to go people. We get out of the service, we're dependable, we have a great work ethic, and we get out of the service with our tails between our legs, and you got to get out of the service with a carpe diem attitude, man. Seize the day.
Right.
You are a national treasure, veterans. Get out there and do it. There are some other things I know we're running out of time that I wanted to bring up, but life is fragile. Life is fragile. Pursue your dreams and start as soon as possible.
Don't wait.
Don't wait.
If I was going to write a book, it would be called Don't Wait.
That's right.
Well, dude, I am just so excited, so happy that we got to go and hang out and chat a little bit. And
me too.
I know we're only we're not even an hour away from each other.
Yeah.
We should go and hang out. And Al Rosemiller, Rosemiller.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He wanted to do a reunion, but I think something kind of passed off, and that I think he moved. He was in San Mateo. He moved to Reno. So we got to find another place to do a reunion. But yeah,
I got a big clubhouse. I live at a place with a huge clubhouse. In fact, my daughter's getting married in November. We're putting 150 people in there. It's huge. So we could talk about that. Definitely.
Love to just reconnect with a whole bunch of people. It's so fun watching people get older and see their stories like you, right? It's exciting to see what's happening. So yeah. So let's catch back up in a month, and once the wedding's done, let me know, and then we can figure out something for the Marine Corps.
For sure.
Birthday.
Stay in touch.
All right, brother.
Pleasure meeting you, Mark.
You too. Semper Fi out to everybody.
All right. See ya. All right, dude. Send it over, and then I'll do all the work since you have a hard stop.